Welcome to East County Magazine's forum for the Lemon Grove mayoral candidates. We want to thank all 4 candidates for participating tonight. Mayor Racquel Vasquez, Councilman Jerry Jones, businessman Chris Williams, and financial professional Kamaal Martin. We also thank the Facebook Journalism Project for funding our series of virtual candidate forums in this COVID-19 era. And we thank the many residents of Lemon Grove who sent in so many great questions, and we're going to try to fit as many of them in as we can tonight. I'm Miriam Raftery, editor at East County Magazine, and I'll be moderating tonight's forum along with our co-host and producer, John Sepulveda, who will also be our timekeeper. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement and 1 minute for closing statements. The first round of questions will be 2-minute responses for every candidate, followed by a rapid response round of some of the shorter and easier questions of 1 minute, or we may even have some at 30-second lightning rounds for those that are mostly yes or no type answers. So without further ado, let's get started. Mayor Vasquez, can you start by telling us, giving us your 2-minute introduction to share your qualifications, your accomplishments as mayor, and your goals and visions if you're the mayor for the next 4 years in Lemon Grove.
Good evening. My name is Racquel Vasquez, Mayor for the City of Lemon Grove. So happy to be here to discuss all things Lemon Grove. Now, as a city, our priorities are to protect public health while maintaining the essential services that residents and businesses depend on daily. While we are stepping up to care for each other in extraordinary ways, my colleagues and I will continue to be laser focused on what's important, and that's supporting the recovery of our community, but also our economy, both social and economically, with a sincere commitment to reopening businesses according to the guidelines that are set by the County Health and Human Services Agency. Again, my name is Racquel Vasquez. I'm mayor for the City of Lemon Grove. I have a website that you can go to get more information. It's racquelformayor.com, racquelformayor.com. You can go there. There's a list of accomplishments, as well as more information about our future and the vision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Next up, Jerry Jones, Councilman. And by the way, we will be rotating who goes first throughout the evening, so everyone gets a turn. Councilman Jones.
Thank you. I'm going to concentrate more on introduction to myself and a little on the personal side. Cheryl and I bought our first house here in Lemon Grove in 1977. That was the year that the city incorporated. We ran our family auto repair business here for 25 years, and we raised our 3 boys here in Lemon Grove and educated them in our local schools. It was that involvement in schools that started me and my wife actually both on our community service. I started out as a PTA president of Lemon Grove Middle. I was president of the Lemon Grove Music Parents, parliamentarian for the Lemon Grove PTA Council. I was a member of the Chamber of Commerce Board, and I was the chairman of the Government Affairs Committee. I was elected to the school board in 1996 and the city council in 2002. During my time on council, I've had my regional assignments have included SANDAG, MTS, Metro Wastewater, Heartland Communications, and the East County Economic Development Corporation. I was chairman of the planning committee at SANDAG for 2 years, and I am currently the chairman of the Metro Wastewater JPA.
Very good. Next up, Kamaal Martin. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Miriam. My name is Kamaal Martin. And I'm running for mayor in the city of Lemon Grove because this city is in a crisis, a public health crisis, an economic crisis, and more importantly, a crisis of leadership. Prior to the COVID pandemic, our city was in the midst of a structural deficit to the tune of $500,000. For a city to get $500,000 in the red, these aren't decisions that happen once or overnight. It took a long period of time for our city to find ourselves in the position that it is now. And like many of you, I simply can't go on thinking that the same thinking, and the same ideas that got us in this situation can now all of a sudden magically fix it and find our way out. I spent the better part of 10 years in a number of different levels in local government. I've worked for the state assembly as a staffer. I've worked for the San Diego County Airport as their government relations specialist. I'm a financial professional now. I'm an education advocate. And more importantly, I've made Lemon Grove my home. While I may not have been born and raised here, almost all of my adult and professional life has been in San Diego County, and most of that time here in Lemon Grove. I believe we have to turn Lemon Grove into the cleanest and greenest city in San Diego County. Starting with the Connect Main Street project, revitalizing our downtown. In terms of economic development, there's so much we need urgently, and things we have to do at the same time, planning longer term. So I'm proposing that we come up with a threefold strategy of stabilizing, sustaining, and strengthening our economy. And there are a number of tools that we'll have at our disposal. Lemon Grove is not unique among small cities around this nation who have struggled economically prior to the COVID pandemic. And whatever the deficit was before COVID, it's probably tripled by now. So the urgency is that much greater. There's nothing new under the sun, just its arrangement and application. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just need vision, creativity, and the will to focus on what can be done and not what we couldn't do or why it didn't happen. Now's not the time for the blame game. Now's the time for new leadership and a new Lemon Grove.
Very good. Thank you. And last but not least, Christopher Williams, tell us about yourself, your experience, and your vision for Lemon Grove.
Good evening, Lemon Grove. My name is Chris Williams, and I'm asking for your vote to become mayor of Lemon Grove. I'm asking for the support of all Lemon Grovers who believe we deserve better than what we have been getting from our city hall. It's time for leadership who can get the job done. No more empty promises. A leader prepared to set ourselves on a modern journey. No more business as usual from our local government. I've been lucky enough to see Lemon Grove from many perspectives. As a Navy brat, a neighbor, father, coach, and local businessman. It is time for a change. Not just a wish, but a hope for a leader that will not accept Lemon Grove for what it is, but what we could be. My fellow citizens of Lemon Grove, we are facing big challenges. They are critical, and there are many. These challenges don't have a quick fix, any easy answers. Understand this, together we can solve it. United, we can turn our challenges into opportunities. My experience in venture capital and private equity, and the will to improve Lemon Grove makes me uniquely qualified to serve as this position of mayor. What we need to remember is that Lemon Grove is a business. It needs to be looked at least some of the times, through the lens of a businessman or woman. That means we need to be practical. We need to be realistic. We need to be accountable. And the only way you can be accountable is if you are transparent. See, for years, my job was to get the rich richer. I had to identify and analyze, compartmentalize opportunities. The most fulfilling part of the job was with dealing with entrepreneurs, small business owners, who with hard work, grit, and hustle and grind are now living that American dream. I believe everybody in Lemon Grove should be able to live that dream. Black, white, Hispanic, LGBTQ, police, everybody should be able to live that dream.
Thank you, Mr.
So
Williams.
what I say is that with incredible work ethic and determination, we can improve Lemon Grove.
Thank you very much. Next question, and if you can each remember the order, by the way, because we'll be going in the same order, just rotating who goes first. Next will be, Jerry will be first on this one, Jerry Jones. Lemon Grove, as many of you have alluded, was facing a budget crisis and a deficit even before the pandemic. Can you please share your ideas, specific ideas for solving the financial crisis, and specifically what ideas you have for raising revenues, and also address your views on the proposals out there by some who are saying Lemon Grove should just disincorporate and go back to county control? Councilman Jones.
Well, first of all, let me say that disincorporation is not the answer. And let me just explain why. If we went back to the county, we would become the only unincorporated properties in the county with 2 trolley stations. One of the biggest fights I've had in this last year is to keep Sandag from overdeveloping us with multi-residential housing. And if we ended up disincorporated, the county would stack all of their requirements into Lemon Grove. They would have to because of the way that the formulas work. That alone is worth fighting to keep the city alive. In terms of the structural deficit and where we go and what the alternatives are, we've already taken steps. We pushed earlier this year to get the cannabis tax on the ballot. I think that'll go a long way to stopping the bleeding. It's not the only answer, but at least it's a beginning. We got inventive and we resurrected an old idea we had back in 2010, about 10 years ago, to do the digital sign. That should bring in, well, that will bring in a minimum of $350,000 a year. And anybody who thinks we're only going to get $150,000 a year is kidding themselves. We've got the only digital billboard headed out to the casinos, so it's going to be better than that. And that company has expressed an interest in doing a second one. So depending upon who you talk to and how much money you think you're going to get out of the, cannabis tax, you know, that could be anywhere from 350,000 to numbers I'm hearing could be up to $1 million. And we could be looking at another $1 million in the signs. Honestly, that would almost put us zero. And then if we wanted more, we could always get inventive in other aspects too.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Kamaal Martin, what are your ideas for solving the deficit?
Immediately, we need to bring a transactions and use tax back to Lemon Grove. We need to increase our sales tax. It's one of the most powerful tools of legitimate economic development that we have, and it's something that we absolutely cannot ignore. I believe that the fact that Measure S did not pass recently was evidence of some of the lack of faith and trust that residents have in our leadership to do the right thing with the money that we're already providing them. Being able to tax cannabis is a huge piece. Measure V passed 4 years ago, and it's taken us 4 years just to figure out how to bring $1 of revenue back into this city. These are low-hanging fruit. These are pieces that absolutely should have been a given. So these are primary and foundational parts of a strategy of economic development. At the same time, there are so many other things that I'd like to see happen. I'd like to see an enterprise fund created with some of that money. One of the things that I think is going to be really important to passing a sales tax measure is a really clear communication of what you're going to do with that money. You can't just ask residents to give us more, trust us, we're going to do the right thing with it. And I think an enterprise fund, a dedicated fund, where the purpose of that money is specifically to identify ways to bring additional revenue in. Public-private partnerships are going to be a big part of how we grow. Just rebranding and reimagining our own city and kind of dusting off our identity and figuring out how we package and brand and promote ourselves to the rest of the county, the state, and the world is going to be a big part of that strategy. I'd love to see a full-time grant writer in Lemon Grove as part of the way we fund the Connect Main Street project. I think foundation money and philanthropic dollars are going to have to be a huge part of this strategy. I think we have to build and grow our way out of the hole that we find ourselves in. And when I say build, I think housing is a big part of that. Do we need to build 1,400 units of housing like Sandag asks us? No, I don't think so. But I think we should focus on what we can build instead of what we can't, won't, or shouldn't build. Land value recapture, tax abatement, a chamber of commerce, a business improvement district. These are all things that are part of a continuum of strategies and tools that we have to employ. In my first 90 days in office, when we were elected in November, I would absolutely love to see an economic development committee driven by citizens to focus on some of these pieces. There's incredible talent here. I think the power of volunteers is going to be incredible, and part of how we lift ourselves out of the predicament that we find ourselves in today.
Okay, thank you. Christopher Williams, let's hear from you.
Well, I think this is something that we should focus a lot on if we want to save Lemon Grove. And I'll start with your question regarding disincorporation, Miriam. First off, as a representative, I know that I represent the taxpayers. And so telling them that something is not for them is not the way that I will go about if I am mayor of Lemon Grove. What I will do is have a discussion, an open-minded collaboration with the community to find out what is best for us. See, in the investment world, we don't throw good money at bad money. So the first thing we need to do is we need to decide what is good and what's bad, what's working and what's not. And that's important. And so disincorporation cannot be flat off the table because it's something the citizens should have to decide because it's their money and it's their business. Now, in regards to how we can improve the citizens' business, well, there's many ways we can do that. Well, first off, small businesses, large businesses are the backbone of our revenue. What we need to do is make it where it is more business friendly in the city. I am uniquely qualified to speak about what it is like to open up a business in Lemon Grove. There are 673 line items on the master fee schedule. That is how you charge businesses or what businesses have to pay to operate in Lemon Grove. That is absurd. That is why we see more businesses leaving and no businesses of fair or equal value in return. So we need to cut the red tape. We need to cut the bureaucracy. We need to cut the favoritism, nepotism, and everything else that is going on in City Hall, so that way businesses can begin to open. Once we open, we begin generating revenue. Now we have to plan, what are we going to do with that revenue? We need to look how City Hall is spending our money. If we stop our waste, if we reduce our line items, we then can begin to attract businesses. Now we also have to recruit businesses. The one thing about people with money,
we're at time, Mr. Williams. Thank you.
They don't just give it to you. You have to find a way to attract and give them a reason to do business in your city. And that's what we'll do if I am there.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mayor Vasquez, your ideas on the budget crisis.
Thank you. And I believe that Lemon Grove has a very bright future ahead. As when I was elected mayor in 2016, I inherited 20 years of deficit spending. And so I prioritize budget transparency, infrastructure improvements, and quality of life improvements while protecting the vital services that are important to the community. My ask here today is that the voters will allow me to continue that work. And so you may ask, what has happened over the past 4 years? Well, we got a new budget reporting system in place, easy to understand for the average person. And we got that up on our website so that people can monitor our spending. Next, we improved the city credit score. When I came on board, the credit score for the city was a BBB minus, which means that the city could not bond or get a loan. And so we fixed the discrepancies. An audit was performed in 2016, which revealed that there were accounts set up that had money, some did not. Staff was being paid out of gas tax and sewer fees, which is not legal. We streamlined all of that and got that budget reporting system in place, and we moved forward. Today, our credit score is a BBB plus, which means that we can bond or get a loan. We created a 115 trust to put one-time money into, so that when we have spending that's necessary, we will have the money set aside to pay down those long-term liabilities. That trust today is earning 9%. And we've instituted, thank you.
Thank you very much. You can finish your sentence if you want to.
Oh, sure. You know, we've also brought on board the sign, the gateway sign, which is going to generate $325,000 per year plus for the next 20 years. We received $4 million in grants to pay for phase 3 of the linear park, and we've instituted so many changes within the city. So thank you so much.
Okay. Next question. Racial justice protests especially over police use of force against minorities have rocked the nation and much of San Diego County. Lemon Grove is spending, I believe it's more than 75% of its budget currently on sheriff and fire protection, along with salaries, pensions. While some want to see more money shifted away from law enforcement and into other things, others voice concerns about crime and say the sheriff response times are actually too low in Lemon Grove. So I'd like to hear from each of you. What ideas do you have for addressing both racial equality and public safety in Lemon Grove, and specifically your views included in that on shifting any, whether you support or oppose shifting any sheriff funding to other things such as having alternative responses to homeless and so forth. And let's see, Kamaal, it's your turn to go first on this one.
Thank you, Miriam. One of the things that I absolutely will prioritize is public health and a reimagining of public safety. In the city of Lemon Grove, a town of 3.9 square miles, we've had somewhere between 15 and 21 sheriff's deputies, depending on what's been going on. We've had to recently cut some of our staffing within the sheriff's department because of the budget needs. Now, I think there's a big difference between an intentional and a thoughtful reallocation of resources versus cutting staff because you simply don't have the funds to take care of the staff that are already there. I think that the moment that we find ourselves in today nationally, Lemon Grove is really a microcosm of the United States. And we have the opportunity to look at all of the institutions and services that we take for granted, that provide for our needs and our safety, and evaluate how they're serving us and how they can better serve us. When someone showed up at a Del Taco waving a gun, I want the sheriff to show up. Law enforcement would be the first person to tell you, or the first group to tell you, that they can't do anything to arrest homelessness away. They can't do anything to arrest substance abuse or mental health away. I think we owe it to ourselves, with the sheriff's contract that we have, to take time thoughtfully to evaluate what is the best use of all of these resources. Does everyone have what they need to do their job, and who could do it better? And what better than a place like Lemon Grove to be able to implement these types of interventions and thoughtful changes as we explore the politics of care and truly use our budget as a statement of values. If we can eradicate poverty in small ways locally, it's naturally going to transfer into a reduction in a need for certain types of law enforcement response.
Thank you.
If there's nothing for young people to do at night, how can we blame them when things happen and young people get involved in activity that none of us want them to be engaged in? We have to provide them alternatives and options. Reallocating resources back into the rec center, into sidewalks, street lights. People in this community are prisoners in their home at night, depending on where they live. These are the types of things we have to address.
Mr. Martin,
I'm really
thank you.
looking forward to the opportunity to working with people of goodwill to find common ground on all of these fronts.
Yeah, I think we're over. Chris Williams, what do you have to say about racial justice and public safety issues?
Well, I think this is an important topic that we should be discussing not only on this forum, but every day. You know, the people are speaking and they want change. But what we also need to do is we need to be mindful of emotion and mindful of logic. So there needs to be a way that we look at budget allocation. See, that can't be a scary word, because that's a word that must be done with any business. And again, that's what this is, business. And so public safety is paramount. In Lemon Grove, that I am mayor in, everyone is safe. From the homeless man or woman, to your police officer, to your Black and brown child, you will feel safe to walk our streets in Lemon Grove. And there will be accountability for anybody that hurts one of our Grovers. You gotta follow the rules. And if you follow the rules, we'll be okay. But one thing that you can't do is you can't put 78% of our budget specifically on fire, public, fire, sheriff, and animal control. That's not sustainable. So what we need to do is figure out how we can balance and find a happy median. The happy median does not mean that we're less safe. What we need to do is we need to analyze the opportunities that are out there in regards that police should not be having to worry about. They should have to worry about protecting peace. They should not have to worry about mental illness. They should not have to worry about homelessness. These are things that we can look at on where we could reallocate and where we could reform on how we police. We need to invest in our youth.
Thank you. I want to remind everybody to look over there. John, when you say 15 seconds, if you could also put the person's name in chat so they can keep track. And it's hard when we just say 15 seconds, it's hard to tell which person. So we can stay on time since we started late. Mayor Vasquez, your ideas on this issue, public safety and racial justice issues.
So, you know, we are dealing with a lot these days, systemic racism, along with our own physical and mental health and the well-being of those who surround us. And with that said, you know, it is important that we take care of our own backyard. The one thing that I can say about the Lemon Grove Sheriffs is that they are very diverse, truly representative of the community that they serve. They treat their job as community safety officers, building connections with community members, and that's something that I honor and recognize. However, when systemic racism issues rolled forward, I, along with some of the 9 contracted mayors throughout the county, we called for a meeting with Sheriff Gore. And during that meeting, we talked about these issues and how we have reached critical mass and what it takes to change. And in terms of my comments moving forward, I called for more meetings amongst the mayors to see where we are and what type of changes that we're making. I also asked for a localized crisis team to have them in place, because sheriffs have been the catch-all for all things happening in the community. And they handle things that are not necessarily under their purview, such as homeless. Being homeless is not a crime, it's a condition. And so making sure that you have the right resources in a community is essential. Calling for a restorative justice program, positive youth engagement, and public safety 101 for everybody. This is important because when you get pulled over, you should know the first thing you do is turn on your hazard lights. This signals to the officer that you see them and that you're looking for a safe space. Most people don't know that. If people knew the rules of engagement, that would take away that opportunity to get to a point where de-escalation is necessary. So I'm happy to be part of those conversations. And as mayor, I will continue to move forward with ensuring that we try and heal our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And Councilman Jones, your thoughts on racial justice and policing public safety issues.
Let me start by saying that public safety is the foundation and the prime objective of elected officials in their city. It is what we do. It shouldn't be the only thing that we do, but it is our prime objective. Second, I don't hear anybody when I'm out in the community asking for less police. If anything, they want more. But that said, there's a lot of emotions on all sides of this defunding issue, and we have to listen. For me, I think there's nothing wrong with us doing a review, a redefine, and identify and communicate. communicate, because we don't really understand exactly what it is that the sheriff does, because the sheriff's not just a sheriff and law enforcement. They're first responders. And so we have things in our contract that they provide for us, things like the PERT teams, and they do the homeless things. So there's a broader delivery. They do crime-free housing as well. These are all things that we get in our contract. And I don't think a lot of people know that. And I think we need to do a better job of conveying that to the public. I was in the meeting with the sheriff that Mayor Vasquez mentioned. I asked about this. I didn't get a very good answer on that one. I also asked about the citizens oversight. The county has their own program. I think contract cities need to be more included in that. And I think it needs a review. The county is working on that. I also think that our sheriff's department, our staffing should better reflect the diversity of our community. And I've called on the sheriff to do a better job there. Don't rely on your watch commanders. Make that come from your office and make that a positive thing. And then I asked for a body camera review on the amount of time that it takes to release those, because they're not very consistent about the time they release that to the public. And I think that needs to be more consistent.
Okay, thank you very much.
Stopwatch worked. I'm just kidding.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you for that. An unusual element in this race is that one of the mayoral candidates, Mr. Williams, has a lawsuit pending against the city and Councilman David Arambula over injuries he sustained in an alleged assault by Councilman Arambula at the councilman's home after an alleged discussion over cannabis dispensary applications of Mr. Williams. Councilman Arambula, we should say, denies these allegations, and it's going to be up to a court, to determine the veracity of these. The lawsuit also claims a pattern of retaliation by the city against the dispensary applications. Mayor Vasquez was at the councilman's home that evening, although reportedly, Racquel, I understand you arrived after the purported discussion and left before the physical altercation. That said, the mayor was made aware of it promptly, and yet neither the mayor nor the councilman informed other city council members or staff about this incident, and they voted on the agenda items over the dispensary several days later. So I understand some of you may be constrained on what you can say in a pending case, but the public did send a lot of questions. So I'm going to vary these a little bit, for each person. I'll read them all and then we'll go in order. For Mr. Williams, can you explain why you declined to press charges initially when you spoke with a sheriff detective at the hospital? And what would you say to voters who were wondering whether they should put their trust in someone who is suing the city? For the mayor, we'd like to know why you didn't inform the council members and the staff or recuse yourself from voting as a possible witness in this. And for the other candidates, can you explain whether you think the city should have handled this any differently and what steps in the future might prevent the city from being vulnerable to legal actions in the future? Mr. Williams, we'll start with you on this one.
Yes, I came to Lemon Grove to do business, and I was invited by lady of the Democratic Party. I was invited by the Councilman David Arambula to discuss my dispensary applications. I was called by them, and anyone that does business knows that if the people of power call you, you pick up the call. And that is exactly what I did. In these times right now, there's a lot of emotion, and that's why we're talking about public safety. And a lot of that emotion arises from the lack of accountability. I have experienced unprovoked violence, and there has been no accountability. And so this is my form from my experience to create change based on experience on how this city hall operates. What you didn't say, Miriam, is that same councilman has been accused of violent threats and violent prior. Even Mr. Jerry Jones have said that he thought he would hit him while he was up there making a decision regarding the city councilman's business. I see you shaking your head, but we'll place that on our webpage so that everyone can see. I bring that up because there is a pattern of behavior. And if there's no transparency, there will be no accountability. Miriam, you said that there are some things that they can't talk about. No, they can all talk about those things. They don't want to talk about those things because they don't want to talk about the truth. I've been discussing the truth while I've been involved in this travesty. I had to look this man in the eyes while I knew that they were making a decision on my life, my families, the people who supported me. And they said nothing. They did nothing. I spoke to the police that night. I didn't press charges because I was scared out of my mind. If you were there that evening, you would have seen why I was scared out of my mind. That gentleman went from 0 to 100 like really quick. And that is not something that is out of his, because he's been accused of it before and he's been accused of it after.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Williams.
what I am here to do, excuse me, you're asking a very important question, and I'm the only one that this actually personally affects. So I would appreciate just a slight little bit more time, or at least the time to return back to this situation. Because
go ahead. I'm going to give you a few more seconds, Christopher, because
thank you, Miriam.
and we'll do the same for each of you on this question, if you need it.
When you're a victim, Miriam, and you know that these people hold your life in their hands, that is why you are afraid to press charges. There have been millions of people who have been afraid to press charges. But what I did was I stepped above my fear for the people who believe in me, for this community, for my family, and say, I will hold him accountable. Through civil liberties, we will hold him accountable. I didn't want to sue Lemon Grove. That was the only choice that I was given based upon how they act at their city hall. And I will tell every victim out there to utilize the courts. Let your voices be heard. And I will let you know that as mayor, I will be able, I've seen the underbelly. I know how this city works. And we will be able to take that and use that in our advantage and create opportunities and get away from corruption and the ugliness. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Mayor Vasquez, will certainly give you the same amount of time that we gave Mr. Williams on this important question.
Thank you so much. As you know, there's litigation against the city of Lemon Grove. And because there's litigation right now, I am unable to discuss this matter. In the meantime, my ask is that people be mindful and respectful of the process as we are moving forward, and ultimately we will see what happens. But at this point, you know, there is litigation and I am unable to discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. And I should add, it's unfortunate that because of COVID-19 and the courts being closed, that the trial will not take place until after the election. Otherwise, I would have simply waited on the trial, but we felt, you know, we needed to address it since the courts haven't. Let's see who's next here.
I too think it should be addressed, Miriam, and I thank you for this question.
Okay. Councilman Jones, what do you have to say about this issue? You were on the council, we should note, or still
So, you know,
are, when it's occurred.
As Mayor Vasquez pointed out, you know, we are in a lawsuit and we're restricted in what we can say. Everyone should keep in mind that it's our responsibility to protect the city and the citizens' assets, which is the city. I wasn't there. I didn't know about it until January of the next year when Mr. Williams filed his lawsuit. There were 2 times that Mr. Williams came before us for zoning clearances for his dispensaries. One time we denied him, and one time I got creative and we actually gave him a permit. There's a lot of he said, she said in all of this lawsuit. I mean, there's no pictures, there's no video, there's none of that in this. But one thing is for sure, there was a whole lot of bad decision making by all parties involved. And the 3 of them are on the ballot and asking you for their trust. You have to ask yourself, do they deserve that? Any of them, any of the 3 of them? That's a question. Whatever happens with the lawsuit, that's not the point. This is about electing people that you trust. And there were bad decisions made there. And we can't control bad decisions from council members. You know, Mr. Williams may want to try and put this on the whole council, and that's, you can't do that because we don't control individuals and we don't control their decisions.
I agree, Joe.
And that's my say on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Martin, do you want to weigh in on this issue?
Miriam, I wish I didn't have to. I wish this wasn't happening in my city. There's an African proverb that says, when two elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. The residents of Lemon Grove in this case are the grass.
That's right.
I opened my remarks with talking about a crisis in leadership. This is, I don't know what could be clear evidence of the crisis that we're dealing with. I can say with certainty that when we're elected in November, we'll make it a practice to not do personal business or city business at our home. Meet at the coffee shop, meet at the cafe, meet at the park. There are 1,000 other places that you could be. I really wish this is unfortunate and it detracts from the real issues at hand and the real work that has to be done. Not to mention the tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and additional costs that the city is now encumbered with. And who knows what the future holds. I certainly don't. But again, new leadership, a new Lemon Grove.
Okay, thank you very much. And now I'm going to go to, yes.
Miriam, as
Yeah.
I didn't use my full 2 minutes, let me just say this, okay? How do I put this? Because I want to make sure that I'm very clear. And I'll say this. I was called by Taisha Brown, who was the vice chair of the Democratic Party, who said, why don't you stop by? I'm here in Lemon Grove. It's just me and David. You should come and visit us. And at the time, I was trying to meet with David, but couldn't get a meeting with him. I always try to reach out and talk with people. But it was, not long after getting elected. She said, it's just me and David. And when I got there, Chris Williams was there. And I saw what was going on and I left. And when I left, my goal was to make sure that Taisha Brown left too. So I want to be very clear about that. And as a result of that whole bait and switch that happened that night, I do not go to anyone's home for a taco party, a baby shower, or any other event because of what happened that night with Chris Williams. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that, Mayor. And I will say I have read through the depositions, and that is actually consistent with what one of the few things everybody agreed on was that point. So thank you very much.
Actually, Miriam, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair to make that statement. I actually do not agree with that.
Okay.
Racquel knew that I was at that meeting. David
I did not.
All right, y'all.
I did not.
We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna
It's in the deposition.
We can't do this.
Okay, I may have missed something in there with 2,000 pages. Anyway,
Miriam,
go ahead. I'm going to go to John now.
Thank you so much. I'm going to move on, and I'm going to say I have grown up in Lemon Grove. I went to San Miguel Elementary. I went to Lemon Grove Middle School. I went to Helix, and then other Grossmont Union High School districts. And I grew up at the Lemon Grove Rec Center. This question's been with the mayor. Mayor, I don't know, you probably don't remember me, but I was working for CNN at the time, and I called you and I said, what are you going to do about the rec center? And you said, I am going to open it. It is not fully open. It is nowhere near fully funded. And we are seeing what happens with the crime rate, the graffiti, the tagging, when young men, particularly young men of color, and I'm saying this as a man of color, don't have those other options. When is the Lemon Grove Rec Center going to be open?
Currently, there is no money in the budget. Let me be clear with that. Coming on board and seeing what the financials look like, while there is a need for recreation in the city, the funding is not there to support it. The recreation program was cut in 2010. That money, the savings that was realized was put into reserves. And you know, when you take a look at the broad picture, in order to build the reserves, money was taken away from our youth opportunities. While we are striving to get to a point where we do have recreation for our youth, we partnered with the County of San Diego to bring to Lemon Grove SD Nights. It was an opportunity for youth to come in and participate in some recreation activities, but also while the city sponsored recreation programs, we allowed contracting opportunities to take place at the recreation center. So those who were interested in running a program, they could. All they had to do was contract with the city to do so. And so while it's not a formal recreation program that is in play, there are opportunities for youth engagement to occur. It's not ideal, but it is my hope that one day when we fix that structural deficit, that we will be able to have recreation for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. To Mr. Martin?
Yeah, and one thing I just want to throw in that we forgot to mention, this was supposed to be going to our rapid response of 1-minute responses. If you need 2 minutes, since we gave the mayor more time, we'll let you, but for the rest of these, if we can try to keep these tighter so we can get as many of the audience questions as we possibly can, that would be fantastic.
Mr. Martin, what would you do to, first of all, do you agree that the Lemon Grove Rec Center should be open? And if so, how would you staff it? Would you continue to kind of go through the private sector, the private nonprofit sector, or would you try to reinstitute city employees at that rec center?
So first, let me start with the rec center is a tremendous asset and should be an even greater and more valuable asset. My kids grew up using it. You grew up using it. It's a fixture in this community. And the fact that people don't have the same access to it is tragic. The city of Lemon Grove spends less on its residents than almost any other city in San Diego County. We have some of the most overworked and underpaid staff within San Diego County. And with all of the cuts that have been happening over the past 10, 12, 15 plus years, we owe it to ourselves to bring new thinking into City Hall and figure out creative ways to work around this. I would love to see a rec center that's staffed with well-paid city employees. I think that's fantastic. That's not gonna happen overnight. And the less we're able to put into the rec center, the more our town is gonna suffer on other fronts in terms of other expenditures related to law enforcement, first responders and such. When I spoke earlier about finding new ways to bring in revenue, public-private partnerships, philanthropic funds, grant funding, these are all the things that we have to put on the table in order to bring the best ideas forward into the marketplace and find a way to reinvest in our infrastructure. And our infrastructure isn't simply the built environment, it's the people here too. It's our institutions, it's our community, it's the groups that we have together.
So just to go to the mayor's question and the question I asked, do you support continuing to run it with private or private nonprofit groups? Would that continue under your mayoralship?
I would support a clear accounting and reckoning of whatever it takes to keep the rec center active in whatever form it is currently, but looking at strategies to create a municipally funded enterprise if that is in fact what is the most valuable and effective and efficient.
Thank you.
But I think everything has to be on the table in terms of funding sources. What's important is that young people are able to continue to use that resource and that asset.
Thank you so much. Mr. Jones.
Let me clear up some of the revisionist history here. We eliminated the rec department in 2012, and I was on the losing end of a 3-2 vote on that. I voted no on that. The discussion at that time did include doing a private, public-private partnership with YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club. I didn't like that idea because all the reports I was getting from various sources said that they were very expensive, and I knew that our people in Lemon Grove wouldn't have been able to afford that. We were able to retain a lot of the rec control. We still have our summer camp. We still have a lot of programs. We expand them when we have the money. But the mayor is correct. We just haven't had the money in the budget. Now, the money that was saved in the rec department was about $450,000. That didn't go into reserves. That stopped the bleeding. That stopped the deficit from the recession. And to be clear, we haven't had 20 or 40 years of deficit spending. It's been a few times that we've gone into deficit spending. We went into deficit spending in the Great Recession, and if you ever see the unemployment numbers from that time, it was tremendous. Okay, we did the best that we could, and frankly, I'm proud of the fact that we got through that without raising the taxes. Now, are we going to be able to do that in the future? I don't know. First thing we have to do is we have to start with those foundational things like public safety, things like public works so we can clean up the city, things like spending some money on homeless so that people feel safe in the city. Then when you get to that point, then you can go to the public and say, here's our plan. You have to have a plan. We went to a sales tax measure on the ballot that didn't have a plan, and people didn't trust us to spend the money because we didn't tell them how we were going to spend it. So if you go to the public with a plan, and the rec department is part of that plan, and the public says, yes, we're going to pay for this, that's where you get the success. But the tail can't wag the dog here. You have to have those foundational things in order to get the public to say, hey, yes, we want to invest in the community. And these are the priorities. And yes, you guys have the priorities straight, and these are the things we're willing to pay for. That's how you pass a sales tax measure. That's how you bring back the rec department.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jones. Mr. Williams.
Thank you. Well, this is one of the reasons that I'm running for mayor, is because of our youth, because of the next generation and the next era. And one of the things that I think is the focal point and the foundation to Lemon Grove is that rec center. It's the heart. When I was a kid, that Lemon Grove Rec Center was one of the best rec centers to go and get a pickup game, go and play ball in all of East County. And it's been closed for over a decade. And what I would like the people to realize is that two of my opponents have made promises for almost that same decade to open up the youth center, and they haven't been able to get it done. They haven't been able to come up with the creative ideas to pay for this youth center. But what I know is we pay for their cell phones. We pay for a whole bunch of waste and abuse in City Hall, but we can't afford our children. Not when I am mayor. One of the first investments we make is in our youth, because our youth is our next mayor. This is common sense. We have to get it open. We may not be able to afford to, but we can afford not to. See, we're talking about public safety. And Jerry Jones, I think you mentioned public safety is the #1 job that we should be doing as mayor. Well, guess what? Youth services is public safety. And we need leadership who can do the job. Now, public-private partnerships, if you can't afford to do it, well, then someone needs to get it done. That's just how it goes. We can't play games, we can't play egos, we can't play pride with our children. I know these games are played because I have personally went to City Hall to do my job as a citizen to get it open, with my private contacts, with my network, to pay. And I'm the only one on this stage who has paid for events that have been open to the public at that youth center with my own money. And I appreciate Mr. Martin showing up to those events. Jerry Jones, never there. Ms. Vasquez, never there. Many of the other city council members, never there. See, that is because it is not a priority. And if I am mayor, our youth is a priority. And that is period. If we can't afford our youth, we can't afford to pay for city councilmen's cell phones. That's it.
Okay, time.
Our cell phones are not paid for. Okay.
And I'll confirm that our cell phones are not paid for by the city. That is not true. Thank you.
Thank you for
What
clarifying.
about a car payment? Do you get your car paid for?
Okay, Mr. Williams, we need to move to the next.
My car payment is not paid for by the city. There are no expenses that are paid by the city. Unfortunately, Mr. Williams,
we're gonna stop
Please
this because
respect the time limits. I'm going to ask all of you to, or we're going to have we're not going to get through this. We want to get all the questions
And
in.
Miriam, we're going into the last 10 minutes of our debate here.
Well, there's a lot of stuff still here, but let's go through and prioritize. Okay, let's jump in. I'm going to combine a couple of them here, but some people say Lemon Grove just isn't seen. They wonder why it hasn't seen as much revitalization as we've seen in, say, La Mesa and El Cajon and City Heights lately. And a lot of the business owners are saying they can't keep operating, in part because of the homeless population, in part because of closure of the Highway 94 exit off Lemon Grove, the pandemic, of course, and other things. So I'd like to ask each of you, what is your plan to bring more business traffic, make the city more business friendly for downtown, and also take care of our unhoused homeless neighbors?
And this starts with Mr. Jones, and reminder that we have 1 minute. So please keep your answers to 1 minute. I will be jumping in.
Okay.
When it comes to business, the best thing government can do is get out of the way. One of the first things I did when I came onto council was begin to try and reduce red tape. And we were able to reduce the use of the conditional use permit to an extent that the Planning Commission was meeting when I came onto council once a month, twice a month, every month for 12 months. And by the time a few years went by, they were meeting 5 times a year. We reduced that red tape by a considerable amount. Redevelopment here is going to be difficult. We lost our redevelopment agency in 2012. There's not a ton of money for that kind of stuff like there was in the old days. Businesses are fighting the Amazon effect, and this COVID thing hasn't helped with any of that.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
The best thing we can, I thought I had another 10 seconds. So I had no time.
I apologize. Go ahead and finish, sir.
Okay. Now you've got me befuddled. Again, the best thing we can do is to get out of the way, but we definitely have to address the homelessness. And again, remember what I said about having a plan. We've got to have a plan. Then we can go to the public and explain what we're going to do, but you got to do those foundational things, and that's one of them. Thank you.
Okay, I've lost track of who's next. I believe it's
Mr. Martin.
Yes, thank you.
Supporting the local businesses that have managed to keep their head above water is of paramount importance, but also figuring out how do we continue to attract new businesses. And when there are so many people who are dealing with homelessness and other real life issues in our community that have caused businesses to close, businesses in prime locations, we have to understand the economic impacts of all of these public health issues. And I think COVID has been very clear to teach us that public health is economic health, but also public health is politics. There's a lot that the city government can do to support business, and there's a lot that is not the city government's role to do to support business. One big piece within all of that is also recognizing, this is something the city government can do, is recognizing that Lemon Grove is one city within a county of 18 cities. And at all of these levels of government, there are resources that we have to unlock, advocate for, and leave no stone unturned, literally scour the earth for all of the resources that we possibly can, specifically to address things like homelessness. That's primarily the County of San Diego's responsibility. We have to put our foot on their necks and be advocates for our residents to get every dollar of resource that we can. And we have to do the same thing with our federal representatives, the same thing with our state representatives, but also understand that we're connected. For those of you who live in Lemon Grove, depending on where you are, one side of your street might be San Diego, one side could be La Mesa, one side could be Spring Valley. We have to figure out a creative way to assert some leadership in our position within the idea of a greater southeastern San Diego. All of the communities between the 94 and the 54 and the 15 to the 125. And if we can convince people to begin to bring all of their investments to Lemon Grove first, as we green this city, restore our creeks, restore our watersheds, and truly create a cleaner and greener city that people want. I believe that has to be part of our branding and part of our identity. We have this rich agricultural heritage in this town, and it's something worth preserving and leveraging and amplifying. And the extent to which we're able to create economic development, promote arts, culture, and bring entities into our community, like the community college system, like other institutes of higher learning. We're already paying, almost a quarter of every dollar in property tax to the Grossmont Community College District. Let's bring a satellite here. Let's get really creative in all of the institutions that are serving people. And again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. These things are being done around the country and other places. Let's study them. Let's learn from their examples. And then let's bring people together, share our vision with them, get them to believe in it, champion it, and lift it up.
Okay. I think anyone not weigh in on? Christopher, did you weigh in?
Nope, if you don't mind repeating the question just for the audience, and I'll make sure to try to keep it to a minute.
Oh, sure. It was about what would you do basically to make Lemon Grove more business friendly while also addressing homelessness?
Well, the first thing I'll do to make it more business friendly is start with City Hall. There's a lot of bureaucracy. So there's a lot of talk about making it business friendly, but in the business world that I'm in, you get paid by executing. How you execute is actually to make it more business friendly. Don't just talk about it. I personally know it's not business friendly. I also know that other business owners know that it's not business friendly to start a business in Lemon Grove. First off, the city's not even open. You can only get to the counter to do business a couple of times hours a day. We're not open on Fridays. Hard to do business like that. So if we want to bring business in, we have to act like we want the business in. We got to get a customer service can-do attitude at City Hall. We need to begin to talk to developers and about the opportunities in our city. These developers are rich. They have a lot of money. They've done the research. There's a reason that they're not coming to our city, and it's because of our bureaucracy and the red tape and how difficult and challenging it is to get the business open. There's 673 line items that we charge to run a business. That's too much. I would reduce that if we was mayor. I would also look at championing being the lowest tax city in the county. Why? Because that's going to allow business owners to keep more of the money. That's going to trickle down and create more jobs. This is how you do it. I believe that if we cut waste, we look at some of what has been going on in regards to the bureaucracy, that we can actually lower taxes. Everyone is talking about taxing cannabis. We need to talk about how we are going to be on the forefront of cannabis. Everybody's taxing cannabis. Let's talk about we're going to make cannabis affordable, right? Homelessness. How do we address that? Well, we need a plan. Everyone here has had their opportunity, except for Kamaal, to answer their homelessness. It has only increased while they were there in office. What I will do is
we're at time.
work with the homelessness to provide options for the homelessness. That's how you start.
Okay, I want to address housing here.
Oh, I'm so sorry I didn't get a chance to answer the
sorry.
question.
Racquel, my apologies. Of course.
It's okay.
Go ahead, sorry.
It's okay. So I just want to let everyone know that this year we expanded our partnership with Home Start to reach out to those who are experiencing homeless. The city has leveraged state and federal grants to create an outreach program to contact homeless individuals, to provide them with items for daily use, and to help them find permanent housing. I'm happy to say that our outreach team has contacted 87 homeless individuals and was successful in finding homeless for many of these individuals. Now, in terms of businesses, we currently have 272 storefront and home-based businesses operating in the city of Lemon Grove. And, you know, they're doing their part to try to be as proactive in maintaining their business operations daily. What we did while we are in the COVID era was we provided $650,000 to businesses in the amount up to $10,000 grants to help with COVID-related modifications that they needed to make in order to stay open to do business. And let me tell you, the budgetary shortfall while we are in the COVID era is not as great as we thought that it would be. And so we are helping our businesses. We're hoping that they will be able to maintain their operations. And we are getting new businesses that are looking at Lemon Grove right now. In fact, going into construction, a brand new Popeyes is underway right in front of Bank of America. You can see the equipment out there. They're actually doing the work underground to build their freestanding building, and also a few other businesses that are coming on board. The list was a little bit longer, but we've had a few COVID casualties. That's what we call them. But they're still looking at Lemon Grove. There are opportunities to do business within the city, and we welcome all that are ready to open doors. Thank you.
Very good. Can we get a minute from each of you on housing? Your view on the 1,300 housing units that Sandag thinks Lemon Grove should be able to put in. Is that attainable? What do you feel? How do you feel about 5-story buildings along Broadway? And also, if anyone wants to jump in, we had several people ask about blight and whether a code enforcement officer, should work on those things on their own, on things like weeds and trash and vacant buildings that aren't being kept up. I know that's a lot, but if you want to jump in on any part, so housing and blight, basically, whatever you want to say. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. I'm looking to see whose turn that is. Well, we'll just jump in. Christopher, why don't you go first on this one?
Housing and blight. Well, I think housing needs to be affordable. And how we do that is by working in partnership with developers. To answer your question, yes, we need to develop. Developing is an opportunity to increase our tax revenues. I think we need to do it mindfully. I think we need to do it with the input of our citizens. The citizens need to be ensured that the decisions that we are making are what's best for the citizens and not self-interest. So housing is paramount. We need it. And I think what we can do is, is thoughtfully think about 3 to 5 stories, but we have retail at the bottom. These have worked. And what we do is we create an urban environment, walkable, mobile in our downtown areas. And the best part about Lemon Grove is we still have that suburban feel right outside our downtown corridor. We need to attract the restaurants. We need to attract the art. We need to attract the yoga studios. We need to get an identity. And right now we're lacking that. Blight. I think blight is important. And it's so important that for the last 2 years, we have once a month put on a community cleanup in which we have picked up tons of trash. We have cleaned graffiti because blight is important. We need to support our business corridor, and we need to make sure that it's clean and that it's ready to do business. And I have personally got behind that effort with my own time and my own dime, because I am too a business owner in Lemon Grove, and it's important that we clean the blight up. There's multiple ways we can do that, but it's going to start with the people, and it's going to start with pride in our community, and we've done that, and we'll continue to do that if I'm mayor. Very
good. Mr. Martin, housing and blight.
Transit-oriented development is going to be one of the keys to our strategy here in Lemon Grove. We have 3.9 square miles. One of the things that people love about Lemon Grove is the kind of rural country feel, 10 minutes east of downtown. How do we preserve and protect that, and at the same time do our fair share as members of the broader county? Lemon Grove previously had always upheld its obligations related to Sandag's ask and the regional housing needs assessment. It's also clear that there are other cities around the state who've managed to find ways of maneuvering politically around their initial allocations. Micro units, micro lofts, density is going to be an important piece. But again, how dense can we go? I think those are some of the questions we need to ask. The downtown village specific plan is already zoned to go a number of stories higher. I think 3 is reasonable, maybe 4, depends on what it looks like, right? But we have to be really intentional about these things. Additionally, what else can we do to position Lemon Grove to receive and embrace boomers as they retire in larger numbers? As the silver tsunami sweeps across this nation, we have one of the largest wealth transfers in American history. How can Lemon Grove capture and benefit from that all at the same time? So we have to be forward thinking, but also take an accurate stock and assessment of the assets that we already have. Transit being one huge one, a school district as another one. The extent that we can focus on making Lemon Grove a place for families to relocate, for young families to start and build a family, what's good for the city is good for the school district, and what's good for the school district is good for the city. Can we build housing for first responders? Can we build housing for sheriffs as part of our strategy of bringing law enforcement closer in connection and proximity to our community? These are all things we should be exploring and absolutely essential, and looking forward to having the opportunity to work with all of our residents when we're elected in November.
Okay, thank you very much. Jerry, Councilman Jones.
First of all, let me say, we don't build anything. Private industry does. Second, you know, I was on the Regional Planning Committee for 14 years, and I chaired it for 2 years. And one of those years, the Smart Growth Incentive Map was done on my watch. So I'm very familiar with affordable housing and transit-oriented development and so on. The problem right now is that Sandag's asking us to take on a 350% increase in our housing allotment. We built 150% of our requirement in the last round. We're the only one in the county, and we're only one of 13 cities in the state that made our requirement. I don't think it's very fair for them to ask us to do 350% more. Now you have to understand that 350% more equates to 5 Citronicas, and Citronica 1, Citronica 2, and Celsiuses in the next 10 years. That would be our requirement. That's too much. At the same time, the rich beach cities got reductions in theirs. Santee got reductions in theirs. So we have to fight for our community. I don't mind doing our fair share, but I'm not going to sit still while these rich communities get away with not doing their fair share. And they've done that this cycle and the last cycle. So when you hear me talking and fighting this stuff, there's no equity in this. There's no justice in this. And we need to preserve our city while we do our fair share. Now, if they would have asked us to take 100% more, I could have accepted that. 350% while other people are taking none is not right. And not only that, San Diego's driving the bus here. They dictated to this. This requirement for us didn't pass one vote without San Diego's weighted vote. This is wrong. This is wrong. Yes, we need to build housing, but they can't impose on our little city like this, and certainly not without a fight from me.
Okay, Mayor Vasquez, your views on the housing issues and cleaning up blight.
So regarding the housing issues, the RENA numbers, our number is 1,359 units, and they're divided up into different categories: 295, at very low 166, at low 193, at moderate, and 705 units, housing units at above moderate. Just know cities that are impacted just like us include Solana Beach, Imperial Beach, and Coronado. And all 4 cities have agreed to join together to fight these numbers. And so soon you'll see a wave of concern roll forward in the form of challenges as it relates to these numbers, but also the way that AB 805 is utilized at Sandag. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there. Now, turning an eye to Lemon Grove, in terms of what's going on, we have new housing that is moving forward. And while, we're pretty excited about the building that's taking place, I'll just run down these areas off of Golden Avenue and Citrus and Skyline and Arcadia and off of Broadway, Hilltop and Church Street and Dane Drive, and as well as Broadway. So there is housing moving forward, and we're really happy that developers are investing in our communities. It is true that the city of Lemon Grove does not build housing. However, we oversee the zoning, but also the requirements in terms of how that housing will get built.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Miriam, if I may, just very quickly, just one piece I wanted to dovetail. The city of Lemon Grove absolutely can develop its own housing legally. we don't do this and we rely exclusively on private developers to do this. But I just want to touch on that to illustrate the type of thinking that we need to incorporate into our decision-making and policy practices to get things done.
Very good.
City may not be the best manager of housing, but we can absolutely build it, right?
Yeah, we are tight on time now. We want to be able to fit this on radio and everything else. I'm going to ask just one last question. I think most of you can probably answer this in about 30 seconds, and then we're going to go on to the closing statements. But can each of you please disclose if you have received any campaign money from developers, labor unions, or other special interests, and also whether you have any outside work commitments that could pose conflicts of interest for you as the mayor of Lemon Grove or future mayor of Lemon Grove. And let's see, I think this would be, Paul went last on that. No, actually, let's see. Jerry, I think you're first on this one.
Can you define special interest?
Well,
Anybody that's not an individual? Is that...
Yeah, large amounts, coming from any particular industry or PAC or that kind of thing. I guess so.
To date, the answer is no.
Thank you. Mayor Vasquez.
The majority of my contributions have come from friends. So no big secret there. And so just friends who trust and believe in me as a leader, and they see a bright future for the city of Lemon Grove.
Okay, and I forgot to ask on the employment. I know Jerry is retired, and you work for, is it City of San Diego?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you very much.
There is not a conflict of interest. I know that there's been rhetoric put out in the public about that. And with that said, there was a memo prepared by our city attorney when that rhetoric rolled forward, and he did a thorough analysis of my job responsibilities along with the responsibilities of mayor, and ultimately he found that there was no conflict of interest. That memo was provided to all of the council members.
Thank you very much. Mr. Williams, any conflicts of interest or special interest money from you?
No special interest money for me. What I believe is my special interest is going to come from the citizens of Lemon Grove. See, what people need to understand is that when someone endorses or PACs are committed, those are pretty much promises. Those are pretty much promises that they have to keep. And so the promises that I want to have to keep are to the citizens. So I'm going to have a grassroots campaign. To answer your question regarding conflict of interest, no. I think what I have is a vested interest because I'm a business owner on multiple fronts. So the better that Lemon Grove does, the better job that I do as mayor, the better my businesses do, the better my community does, the better the people that I care for will do. And if it comes to any of the businesses that I am profiting on or making money with, well, then I would recuse myself as required by law. Something that, some of the my opponents did not do when it came to properly running the city and accusing themselves and being, transparent. So I hope that answers your question. And I look forward to being a business constituent, business partner with the citizens of Lemon Grove when I am there.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Martin, can you tell us if you have any special interest contributions or any outside business interests that could conflict with being mayor?
Thank you, Mary. I'm an independent thinker. I have not received any dollars from political parties, big business, or labor unions. I work with an education advocacy organization, and I have a financial services practice, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity of throwing myself into serving this city as mayor in November.
Very good. Thank you. We're going to move on now to closing statements. So this is your opportunity to sum up in a minute or so why you think you're the best person to lead Lemon Grove. And if there's any issue that didn't get asked, this is your opportunity to throw it in and address whatever you think is important that didn't get included. And I do apologize. We literally had dozens and dozens and dozens of questions sent in. So we've done our best to get as many of the ones, especially the ones that several people sent in, addressed tonight as we can. And I think, let's see, I'm looking here. We had started with the mayor before with opening, and so I think we're going to go mix it up this time so that we have a different, let's go with Mr. Williams. You go first, and let's hear your closing remarks.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the opportunity and the chance to speak to the citizens of Lemon Grove. See, Lemon Grove is a result of our votes. If we want to improve Lemon Grove, it's time to make better choices. See, two of my opponents have had 28 years of opportunity of serving Lemon Grove residents. And the question taxpayers and voters should ask is your life any better within these last 4 years, let alone the last 2 decades that they have had an opportunity to make decisions for you for? See, the mission is to lead in an inclusive community where everyone has a voice and an experience to contribute to Lemon Grove. We need economic opportunity and affordability. We need a government that works for us all, a government that taxpayers can believe is working for them and not their own self-interest. We need mobility, so we need sidewalks, and we need someone who would prioritize sidewalks. We need safety, we need health, and what we need most is to stop the bad spending at City Hall. See, every one of my opponents were for Measure S. They thought the only way to save the city was to ask taxpayers to open up their wallets. I say, if I am mayor, I will ask for our City Hall to open up our minds, to get creative and work for the people. We will cut and focus on downtown expansion. We will focus on the crux of our problems, which is mental illness, homelessness. Our businesses would have post-COVID-19 support. The city will not let you down. If your license is expired, you can count on us because we are your partners. We will make sure there is money for you. We are going to reduce crime, and we're going to do that collaboratively with our sheriff's department and with the citizens. Public safety is more than just hiring more sheriffs. And we're going to talk about revenue opportunities, legalization. See, it's been 4 years since the voters have said they are interested in making money off of cannabis. And two of these individuals, two of my opponents, they couldn't figure it out in 4 years. Why should we give them more time? See, this is not that hard. What we need to do is go to work. What we need to do is execute. And what my opponents will talk about is their experience as politicians. But I will ask my taxpayers, what has their experience done for you lately? What has it done to make sure that you have food on the table? What has it done to help make sure your business stays open and to make sure your neighboring business is open and vacancies are full?
Thank you.
See, what you need is a proactive thinker, independent. And I appreciate the time. Chris Williams, formayor.com, and I look forward to serving you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Martin, your closing remarks, please.
Thank you, Miriam. We need leadership that is capable, conscious, and committed. We need leaders who are assets and not liabilities. If we can come together as a community, take an honest account of all of the things that we have going well, spend a little less time focusing on what's wrong, but how do we lift up the great things? How do we leverage transit? How do we lift up our school district? How do we work better with our neighbors? How do we brand and reimagine ourselves? How do we take institutions that are costing us some of the largest amounts of revenue, like law enforcement, and figure out, are there better uses for those resources? Can they be invested back into the rec center? Can they be invested into other social programs, substance abuse, mental health, alleviating poverty? These are the charges that we have as a city, and we have an opportunity to do things in Lemon Grove that we simply can't do in other places. Trying to make change in the city of San Diego is like trying to turn around a battleship. We're a speedboat here in Lemon Grove. We can do different things. I'm so hopeful at the opportunity to work with residents, to work with all of our leaders, whatever differences or disagreements we've had in the past. And let's also remember, no one can do this alone. It's not simply about the ideas that any one of us have. If you can't work together with your colleagues, then again, we all suffer. And I believe we're seeing too much of that. So Miriam, we need vision, will, and creativity in turning Lemon Grove around into the cleanest and greenest city that San Diego can possibly be. I believe we can be an example regionally and nationally, dare I say. In November, vote Kamaal.
Very good. Thank you so much, Kamaal Martin. And Councilman Jerry Jones, your closing thoughts.
Lemon Grove can't afford 4 more years of Mayor Vasquez ineffective and failed leadership. We can't afford the inexperience and on-the-job training offered by the other 2 candidates either. Neither one of them have experience in local government. What makes me different is, as Mr. Williams said, I do have the experience. I've served on the council in good times and bad. I have a vast institutional memory of the city. I have extensive experience and many relationships in regional governance. Most importantly, I have a proven record of effective leadership as the chair of the Metro Wastewater Joint Powers Authority. As chairman there, I built a cohesive governance team that saved millions of dollars for taxpayers and protected ratepayers' interests for years to come. The skills and techniques I applied there are desperately needed in Lemon Grove today. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get the job done here at home, and I'd be honored to have your vote to begin that work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. Mayor Vasquez, it looks like you'll have the final word tonight. Let's hear your closing statements.
Thank you. And so, again, my name is Racquel Vasquez. I'm the mayor for the city of Lemon Grove and so very honored to serve. I serve because I love this city and I see the potential that we have if we unify and work together. Surprisingly, we have made a lot of accomplishments over the past 4 years, but there's so much work to do. And so, my heart is in supporting the people's vision and what people want here. They want a thriving and safe, business-friendly city with small town charm, offering arts, culture, and recreational opportunities for residents to enjoy. Look, I am committed to doing that work. I've been doing that work, and there's just so much more to do. Now, we have paved 54 lane miles of streets in the past 4 years. We received a $4 million grant to complete phase 3 of the Connect Main Street linear park. And it is my hope, and we're applying for another grant that will complete phases 4 through 6. If we get that $5.6 million grant, we'll be able to do that work. And so keep your fingers crossed. My hope is that the funding it'll be on its way. We have provided more opportunities for seniors and youth during my time here. And, we've done a lot with our parks. Everything from ensuring that there are recreational opportunities. And we've also created a brand new community garden so that our residents can come together and they can grow fresh fruits and vegetables. And so we've accomplished a lot. You can check out my webpage. Everything's listed there. And there's so much more to be added. My website is racquelformayor.com. It's RACQUEL, the number 4, MAYOR.com. I thank you so very much, East County Magazine, for this opportunity to share this time with you and with the residents as well. And I'm looking forward to support as we move towards the election. And it is my hope that the voters would allow me to serve another term. Thank you.
Very good. Well, I want to thank all 4 candidates for participating in this informative forum. It's certainly a tough job to run for public office. And so I think we have to really appreciate the efforts of everybody